have our next guest now, Ms. Titi Oshodi, Special Advisor on Climate Change and Circular Economy to the Lagos State Governor. Good morning, madam. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Great. I wonder if you were listening to our last conversation with the manufacturer's DG?
Yes, I crashed in just in time for that.
Okay. I'd like for you to react to his views on the ban or the proposed ban on the single-use plastic. He did say that jobs are at risk and we don't want that, especially in Lagos State. What's your reaction? He said there are better ways, of managing that instead of the total ban.
Well, I think that there is always that phenomenon of the carrot and stick. As a state, and Lagos State, as a megacity of over 21 million people, decisions will be taken, actions will be rolled out. It had come to that point where we were on the precipice of a health breakdown, and it would have affected a lot of things. So I am sure that as inclusive of a government as we are, we would have had no choice but to go ahead with the ban. But that is not to say that the steps for engagement and for deliberations and for a balanced inclusion would not have been a first inroad into making that decision. And we do understand that there is the risk of disrupting the industry. However, there are so many other options, there's so many other initiatives and possibilities that Lagos State is also creating to be able to deepen that level of engagement so that our manufacturers, producers can begin to look at alternatives. And I think that's essentially why our office, the Office of Climate Change and Circular Economy, had been established so that the other alternatives and the best way to be able to approach from a carrot perspective is to be able to mitigate the effects of the ban on the state. And these are some of the things that I would like to be able to share as we continue with this journey.
Okay, so I know specifically you were here to discuss the London Climate Week, which is next week, but if you would share a bit of it, or are you maybe using this platform to invite the manufacturers to come to your office for a further conversation of this, since it's still a proposed ban, or you want to share some of those plans and strategies that the state has to cushion the impacts of this proposed ban?
I will answer on both ends. The first and foremost is that the doors are always open for these conversations. With the Ministry of Environment, with the ministries that are headlining the ban, the regulators. The doors have always been open and there's continuous conversation. I know that there are exchanges between the manufacturing association and the Environmental Protection Agency. I know that with FIBRA, who is also the governing body for all the manufacturers and these producers, there are also ensuing conversations to be able to leverage what are the options and how can they begin to or continue to ameliorate the effects of the ban. But on the back end, there are also alternatives in terms of climate innovations, in terms of digital transformation opportunities that can help with the operationalization of diversifying and moving into more efficient options in the production of plastic. Note again that the ban isn't totally on all sets of plastics. They are actually on the very components that are very, very deficient to the growth and the health trajectory of the economy. And these are the areas that had been stated, and there was a long process of deliberation to be able to make that hardcore decision at the end of the day. For us at the Office of Climate Change and Circular Economy, we see that not only do we have a rising menace because of the rising population in Lagos State, but we see Lagos also as a city that is driving opportunities in finance, in commerce, in logistics, in technology, in innovation, manufacturing and enterprise all over and across West Africa. So because Lagos begins to sit and continues to sit at the front line of climate vulnerability, the ministries that are saddled with the issue of flooding, coastal erosion, that are saddled with the stress of heat, will make decisions to be able to drive their mandate. But from a climate change and a climate finance perspective, we can't continue to treat the issue only as an environmental issue. It is now becoming an economic issue. It's a fiscal issue. It's an issue that is affecting our social build-up. Government is becoming more and more concerned about it. And more importantly, it is even delving into the security aspect. So as Africa's one of largest urban economy, we see that Lagos is uniquely positioned to lead in areas such as circular economy, in sustainable mobility, in climate technology, and in waste to value infrastructure, such that we're able to attract the ability to scale climate investment. You see, they always say, no romance without finance. All of what is being said thus far only positions us to be able to drive and deepen climate investment so that we do not, depend only on our own infrastructure. Governments cannot carry it alone. This is where private sector participation and investment is becoming more and more critical for us. So we're moving from just establishing and talking about climate action from an environmental perspective alone into building economic agenda and ensuring that public health components are embedded in it, job opportunities are being unlocked, and on the overall, we can have the sort of developments that can help us sit as a sustainable society. And that's why the strategy to become that major financial entity is now delving into the area of green finance.
All right.
And that's where we want the private sector to be participating and working with us.
Okay, and we'll talk more about, how you want them, that's the private sector. But first of all, I guess we should lay this foundation, why it seems Lagos State is aggressive about dealing with climate change. We saw some risks for Lagos State when it comes to climate change. We see that Lagos is ranked globally among the 50 cities most vulnerable to catastrophic extreme sea levels. And the city is projected ranked out of 136 global port cities for absolute population exposure to severe coastal flooding by 2070s. There are 3 meters projected rise in sea levels by 2050 and 165 kilometers of total land area across 14 local government areas at risk of complete inundation. And of course, that's a serious one. 82% of vital coastal wetlands projected to be permanently lost or degraded. And to crown it all, $17 billion is the potential annual loss to Lagos GDP if mitigation strategies remain unfunded. So obviously, Special Advisor, the move of Lagos State has a backing, and I guess that's what you want to discuss next week at the London Climate Change Week.
That is correct. You would notice and you will agree with me that all of the numbers and the statistics that you have rolled out right now have financial connotations to them. So what it means is that even in the security, low infrastructure, inadequate agricultural positioning exposes us to a lot of degradation financially. And if the inaction of it, what it is essentially going to be costing us. There are so many opportunities that are availing for us that we want to start to optimize. The London Climate Action Week is being led, the delegation is being led by the governor, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, because we first and foremost, from a global framework, understand that Nigeria is sitting on immense economic opportunity. The Nigeria's nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement is reinforcing this direction for us, because the outline of this framework gives us the commitments to be able to, it gives us the ability to drive the commitments for emissions. All of the issues that we face today only presupposes opportunities in various sectors for us. You know, we need to build our climate resilience. We need to transition in our energy projection. We need to be able to establish a sustainable development, cutting across our financing, cutting across institutional capacity, in our technology, in our innovation, in our collaborations, you know, with the private sector and development institutions. So we have, from the national determined contributions, localized our own ambition into a state-determined contribution pathway. That's what we refer to it. And it's essentially a model for us to be able to aggregate, to visualize, and manage a pipeline of bankable, objectively high-impact green economy projects across sectors. You know, one of the things that we have been able to simulate so that we're able to foster the private sector participation is in the area of waste valorization. You know, when I have listened to the conversation, even Mr.
Ajayi Kadri.
Mr. Ajayi Kadri, Mr. Segun Ajayi Kadri, had mentioned the issue of the ban. Now, why did the ban come, you know, why was it promulgated? Because the ways, we're looking for ways to effectively manage waste in Lagos State, right? And waste valorization, if you look at what is being done, you know, in the West, the control for waste management is simulated and distilled through the various levels and cadre of the economy, right? Before you get to the point of handing over your waste to the governments for them to be able to collect, it typically should be the last of the last mile that is non-degradable anymore. Why? Circular economy has become the basis not only for lifestyle or for economic or for sustainable living, but for economic propitiation as well. Waste valorization has become the typical, it has become the language for us to exchange with communities. We have simulated quite a number of projects that is called EcoCirculate to help our communities to be able to see that recycling, upcycling, you know, repurposing of materials and waste that is generated in households is no more something to be irresponsibly discarded anymore. And you also, I would reference what Mr. Segun Kadri said about the evolution of various MSMEs in waste collection and recycling. So if we look at it from a commercial and a financial perspective, what we're saying is that the private sector will play a defining role in transitioning, because government alone cannot run this journey. Finance has to be at the scale of transformation so that we can begin to fund and inject, you know, the funding into our young businesses who are positioned in communities so that they're able to scale their operations by developing portfolios for access to finance, improving their supply chain competitiveness, driving operational efficiency for them, and establishing that long-term business resilience. The EPR, the Extended Producer's Responsibility that Mr. Segun Kadri also referred to, is a mandatory obligation from producers and manufacturers to be able to pipeline and distill the level of funding that is required for these young businesses. And for us at the OCCE, what we have been able to do is copulate these businesses into a network called the Economic Business Network. Now, we continuously present this network of over 700 green, sustainably linked organizations, small enterprises. We continue to present them, to entities that are the private sector individuals, the FMCGs, the financial institutions, so that they can begin to see that instituted inside of them, we can develop and design program of activities that are systematically connected to various sectors: energy, transportation, agriculture, environment, and then they can be usefully optimized, to drive their mandates for extended producers' responsibilities at the local government level, and they can also be able to institute their ESG performance so that they can record their impact from an environmental, social, and an economic perspective. So one of those agendas, one of the pillars within the agenda of going to the the London Climate Action Week, is to ensure that we're presenting and pitching these opportunities. Of course, we have our local internally generated opportunities, and this is one of the reasons why we're also designing a climate finance preparedness clinic, so that all of the models that have sort of flossed or rushed through right now is distilled into proper models, into proper business cases for organizations to be able to understand, and they can see that not anymore do we have priorities that should be just seated on the commerce basis or the traditional finance basis. Now, climate finance is becoming more investable. It is becoming more profitable if it is captured on a data collected intelligence system.
All right, Mr. Shodi, as laudable as all of this sound, it does seem in reality that there's still a whole lot of orientation that needs to be done, especially here back home, when you talk about small businesses and all of that, even individuals in the waste management chain. It does seem that there's a whole lot of orientation. I don't know how the government would want to do that, and unfortunately we do not have a whole lot of time, because I'm curious to know, as you're heading to London, what do you hope to bring back home?
Well, first, like I said, our local purview is right on track. First and foremost, the Climate Finance Preparedness Clinic is designed for our local financial institutions, because we understand that our public and private sectors have to have strong climate-related partnerships and collaboration to be able to deepen the climate finance readiness. This clinic is implemented because we know that people will follow the money. If banks and financial institutions have a green economy framework, and they also have the budget that is attractive to green sustainably linked MSMEs and private institutions, they will align. These young and our enterprises and our recyclers and the people who we want them to hold back control of waste management and the other aspects of the green economy will begin to align, because requirements and sustainable frameworks will be embedded in the access to funds and the capitalization that is required. However, on a global scale, what we also desire to do is to integrate these opportunities into what we have localized. There are quite a number of partnerships that have been drawn as well. We can talk about the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. We can talk about the European Investment Bank loan with the Development Bank of Nigeria that are also beginning to hold budgets for access to finance for our young enterprises. So our major portfolio, our major function right now is to go into exhibiting and showcasing what we have as climate resilient pipeline projects that are already growing, that are already burgeoning, and so that we can begin to give that leverage for what we have localized, considering all of our unique possibilities, our unique realities, and showcasing them as an opportunity for climate investment ready projects.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Special Advisor on Climate Change and Circular Economy in Lagos State, Ms. Titi Oshodi. And we wish you a safe trip and a successful one as you head to London.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.